My name is Julie Deloach. I'm with Complete Campaigns, and I want to welcome everyone to our second webinar. Today we are going to go over some specific financial data entry that you can do in your BackOffice database, as well as some financial reports that you can run. To get started, first of all, to log in, you'll just go to www.completecampaigns.com, and then in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, go ahead and just click Client Login. I am going to log into one of our sample accounts. And I have a pop-up blocker turned on. And I am going to always allow pop-ups from this site. All right, so like we went over last week, we're looking at my dashboard right now, and this is the basic start page. When you log into BackOffice, this is going to be the initial page you see. One thing to note is that no matter where you are within the BackOffice database, you can always get back to my dashboard by clicking BackOffice or the icon of the Capitol Dome if you see that in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. I'm going to get started by showing you a few different ways that you can enter financial transactions. They're basically all ways that will get you to the financial register. One way to enter a financial transaction is to simply go to the Add Search tab, and if you scroll down here a little bit, you're going to see that there's a financial section. So if I wanted to enter a receipt, I would just choose Receipt, and then from the sub-menu here, I'm going to go ahead and choose Contribution. As my screen refreshes, you'll see that I'm actually launched to the financial register. And on the right, I could start editing my entering my monetary contribution in the Edit Transaction pane. You'll notice that there's no contributor name filled in here yet. That's because we didn't come into the financial register through an individual record. So again, just note that one way that you can begin entering a transaction is to just go to the Add Search tab, go to Receipt or Disbursement, or Other, and select the type of transaction that you want to begin entering. Another way that you can enter a financial transaction is to just again go to Add Search and choose either individual or organization. Let's go ahead and choose individual. And now I can search for my individual. And we'll choose to use this person. And I'm going to go to the financial section, and I am going to choose from the Add Transaction drop-down to enter a contribution. Once again, you'll see that my screen launches to the financial register. One thing to notice is that because we came in through an individual record, the contributor name is already selected for us. We've come in through John's record, so he's noted here as our contributor. If you wanted to change this contributor, you certainly can. All you would need to do is delete that name and then find your new contributor. So that's the second way that you can access the financial register and begin entering a transaction. Again, we went in by going to Add Search Individual, finding our individual, and then choosing in the financial section to enter a specific type of a transaction. The third way that you can access the financial register is actually just by going to Financial and choosing Register from this drop-down. On the left-hand side, we have the actual financial register, and on the right, we have our Add a Transaction menu. These are all of the same transaction types that we would see in an individual or organizational record in the section labeled Financials in that Add a Transaction drop-down. So if I wanted to, I could just click Contribution Monetary, And now I can begin entering my monetary contribution. So let's go over the components of a monetary contribution. Here you'll see that our date is auto-filled for us, but you certainly can change that date. All you would need to do is delete it, and you can re-enter your date. Now, because we came into this transaction simply by going to Financial Register, this transaction is not yet tied with a record. So we do need to have an actual contributor tied to this. I'm going to ask the system to search. And I am in here many times, clearly, so I'm just going to select myself. One thing to note is that you actually can add a brand new record through this method as well. So let's say that we were searching for Julie Smith. No matches were found. So what I'm going to do is actually click Find. And in my pop-up, I'm going to click Add next to Individual. As you noticed, I could also have chosen to add an organizational record. I'm going to enter an individual. And from the screen, I can, of course, enter any information that I have right now about this person, including occupation, employer, their address. I am creating their new individual record. I'm just going to click Save and Set as Transactee. And now Julie Smith is our contributor, and her record has been created. So Julie has given us $100. And we could select a category type and a category. We are going to go into the creation of new category types and categories in a little while here. But these are options that you can use to identify your money. So maybe Julie was involved with a fundraiser event. I'm going to select that as my category type, which is my umbrella. And then I could choose a category, so I could drill down to specifics. She gave us money related to a fundraiser event, but it was specifically the April fundraiser event. I can choose the election, and I can also choose an account. And we'll take a look at creating accounts later, but this is tied to a bank account that this money is going into. I could associate this with an event, so maybe Julie went to a specific fundraising dinner. And then I could give this a reporting description. And a reporting description is actually going to show up as some additional information on government reports. So if your government report has a field for additional information that you could disclose about a financial transaction, this is where that information pulls from. So that'll be my reporting description. Then I have the option to indicate how this money came. Maybe it was cash. I'll just select that for method. If I did have check selected, I could enter the check number and the bank routing number if I wanted to keep track of that type of information. Intermediary, this is sometimes called bundling, sometimes called conduits. I would use this if, for example, a PAC gave my campaign a check for, let's say, $1,000. And that $1,000 actually consisted of money given by individual contributors. Julie Smith might be the actual contributor, but it came through this PAC, and so I would enter the PAC here in the intermediary field. Below this, you're going to see a section for thanked, and you're also going to see a section for cleared. I typically recommend that you leave these unchecked as you are entering your transaction. Thanked will get checked as a function of running the thank you manager. Later, after you've entered your contributions and you're ready to run your thank you notes, cleared gets checked as a function of reconciling your bank account with your back office register. Internal memo is internal to you. You can enter some information about this person here or this dollar amount that you've received, something specific about the money. One thing to note, and we can take a look at this when we're looking at an expense, but this internal memo section, if we were entering an expense right now, would show up on the memo field of a check check if I chose to print a check from BackOffice. And then partners and splits, this is a section where you can enter, let's say that our check came from an LLC. And so we would, in the contributor field, put Smith LLC as the contributor. That's who the check's from. But we know that Julie Smith actually gave the $100 to make up this amount. You can enter your partner and split here. So Julie Smith would go in the partner and split section. And let's go ahead and try that so you can see. Now I can enter the amount that actually came from Julie Smith, and I could say that that was just the full amount of 100. And then we have this section down here for soft allocations. Soft allocations is where you can keep track of a fundraiser who might be soliciting funds on behalf of the campaign. So maybe we have someone that approached Julie Smith and said, could you please give us a $100 contribution? And we've told this fundraiser that we will give him tickets to a dinner or something like that if he can bring in X number of dollars. This is where we can keep track of our fundraiser. Also, if you're filing a federal report, soft allocations is where you want to enter your fundraiser or lobbyist name so that you can generate a 3L if you ever need to do so. So the soft allocations is very important if you need to generate a 3L. One thing I skipped over is this transfer box. Transfer is a function that's very rarely used. This is something that you would want to check if you need to have a transaction show up on line 12 of your Form 3. This is where you would indicate that you have monies coming in from a joint fundraising committee, so a committee that is controlled by your same candidate. If you have any questions about any of these things, of course, you can feel free to call the support department. All right, so I am going to choose to save, and actually before I do that, I am going to mention this reversal box. Let's say that Julie gave me a contribution a month ago, and I've already reported it to my government reporting agency. And then for some reason, I need to make an offsetting transaction. What I would do is create a brand new contribution for Julie in the same amount. Essentially, the only thing that would change on my new transaction is the date. And before I save, I'm going to click this reversal box. That's going to create my offset transaction. The key to remember is that you aren't going into the original contribution, but rather you're creating a brand new one and choosing to reverse that. That's how you get your offsetting transaction. This is how you might want to reverse a contribution if you aren't actually writing a check. Maybe she called you before you deposited the check and said, hey, don't cash that. So you just want to create a reversal and you don't have to have an actual expense created. We can take a look at how to create an expense to offset a contribution in the case of a refund as well. But for this contribution at this point, I'm just going to click Save. And BackOffice is letting me know that my election is in the past. That's fine. And it's also letting me know that this contributor does not have an occupation or employer on their record. So I could, if I wanted, go into Julie's record and update that information. One trick to note is that you could go into Julie's record simply by clicking the word contributor. You'll notice that there's a line under the word contributor. So we'll click that. And I'm going to get a pop-up, and it's actually going to cause Julie's record to launch for me. So I could enter some additional information here and then save my changes. And now I'll just close that. So now we've entered a contribution. I'm going to close this screen. We also have an option to enter an in-kind contribution. Again, we have a date field that's already filled out. I certainly can change the date. Similar to entering our contribution, our monetary contribution, I can search for and select a specific contributor, and I can assign a value to this contribution. I can also enter a category, give it a reporting description, essentially the same options that existed for the actual monetary contribution. So what's the difference between a monetary contribution and an in-kind contribution? An in-kind contribution is not money, but it's something that has monetary value. So let's say that somebody gave your campaign a desk or a computer. Even though it's not actual money, again, it does have a monetary value. And depending on the rules of your reporting agency, you need to let them know. So you can enter that information by creating this in-kind contribution. I'm going to cancel that. And now I'm back to my menu. I also have an option to enter miscellaneous income. Now, miscellaneous income is something that you might use if you have interest, for example, that you're accruing on an account. You can, like you have a CD or something like that, or a savings account that's interest-bearing. Once you get a payment for that interest, you can enter that as miscellaneous income. You would find your source, probably your bank, if we go with the you're getting interest example. And then similar to entering a contribution, you have a lot of the same fields that you're going to select from. Back at our transaction menu, you'll see that you can also enter a memo contribution. This is going to be somewhat similar to a monetary contribution, but it's not going to have a cash impact on your financial register or on your government reports. But it will disclose if it meets your thresholding guidelines. Under memo contribution, we have an option for a reportable pledge. Reportable pledges are fairly rarely used. This would not be a situation where you called me up on the phone and said, Julie, will you donate $500? And I say, yes, I can, but I can't do it all at once. I will pledge to donate $500. A reportable pledge is something that you're required by law to disclose. So maybe someone has written you into a will. They've given your campaign an annuity of some kind, something like that. Depending on the agency to which you're reporting, you may be required to disclose that, and you can do so by creating a reportable pledge. I'll click that so we can take a quick look. So a lot of similar fields to what we saw when we were looking at a monetary contribution. Now we also have an option to enter accrued miscellaneous income. This is where you might know for a fact that you have money coming in. It's not, for example, a loan that someone's paying back to you. And this is an example of a good time to call your reporting agency to see how they want things entered into your system. Because a good example for accrued miscellaneous income could also be interest that you're earning on a savings account, which we already discussed in conjunction with miscellaneous income. So it's something you might want to clarify with your reporting agency how they actually want that entered. But accrued miscellaneous income is typically something where you know for a fact you're going to have this money coming in. It is not a contribution. Maybe somebody is renting something from you, something of that nature. You know in 3 months somebody's going to be giving you $5,000 for some reason. That again is not a contribution and it's not a loan. So you can keep track of your accrued miscellaneous income here. This is not money that you have received yet. It's money that you know you will be receiving. Then we have a section for loan received. And this is just what it sounds like. You have a loan that you've received. You can enter it here. Below receipts, we have a section for disbursements. You can enter an expense. Again, date field is auto-filled, and then we could find our vendor. We'll have Davy Jones be our vendor, and maybe we paid him $100. Again, category type and category come into play. And this is just a way that we can track our funds, where they're going and why they're going somewhere. We can associate it with an election, an account, an event if we want to. Now here we have an option to choose a reporting code. Now if you remember, when we were looking at a monetary contribution, we did not have an option to select a reporting code. That's because BackOffice knows what the reporting code option is, and that's why there's not a drop-down for you to select. If you're getting a monetary contribution, that reporting code is automatically assigned. But here we can choose the reporting code that's been provided by the government reporting agency. So reporting codes are not something that you create in your BackOffice database. Rather, it's something that's dictated by your reporting agency. So this particular database is set up to report to the FEC. And so maybe we have a contribution refund going to Davy Jones. I will choose the reporting code for contribution refund there. And then it would report appropriately as a refund going back to Mr. Jones. And then we can add a description. Maybe I just want to say that it is a refund. And again, reporting description is something that will disclose as additional information on your government report. How did we pay him? Maybe I wrote him a check, so I'll just select that there, and I can enter the check number. Again, cleared is something that I'm going to leave unchecked as I'm entering my actual transaction, because I know that once I reconcile my BackOffice register with my bank account, this will be marked as cleared. So again, as I mentioned earlier, internal memo is internal to you unless you are going to be printing checks through your BackOffice database. If you choose to print checks against an expense in your BackOffice database, this internal memo will print on your checks memo field. Now you'll see that in this expense area, we can choose to support or oppose. Typically you are going to be supporting a candidate, maybe a ballot measure, so you can check support or oppose as appropriate and search for that candidate or ballot measure. And then we have this section for sub-vendors. So what is a sub-vendor? Let's say that this transaction, the vendor was actually Visa. So we're going to pay Visa, and we're paying Visa $1,000. That Visa bill that I'm paying actually consists of many other charges that have already been paid by Visa to these other vendors. So maybe I have $100 that I spent at Staples. Maybe I spent $100 at Home Depot to get posts for my yard signs. Maybe I needed gas as I was going door to door, so I need to pay Chevron, or I'm paying Visa because I use my card at the Chevron. All of those are examples of potential sub-vendors, and we can just search for our sub-vendor here. And I'm going to click Find and Add. Let's see if Staples is in this database. And it's not, so I can click Add for organizations. And I'm going to save and set this as my sub-vendor. Now for my sub-vendor, I also have an option to enter the original date. So what day did I actually take my Visa card to Staples and make my purchase there? I can enter this. And again, I can choose a category type category, and I can choose a specific reporting code and enter a reporting description if I want to. So I'm just going to click Save And now I've created my new expense. Okay, so under that, under expenses, I have an option to enter an unpaid bill. This is similar to accrued miscellaneous income in that it's something that I know about, but I haven't paid it yet. So maybe I know that I have signed a purchase order for something and I'm going to be paying that invoice in 3 months. I would want to create an unpaid bill. And I can do that just by clicking there. And similar to entering a regular expense, I can enter my unpaid bill amount. This won't have a financial impact on my register at this point. In-kind expenditure made. So perhaps I gave someone else a desk. And then loan made. For some reason, if I made a loan, I could enter it here. And then I have a couple other transaction types down at the bottom of the screen in other transactions. I can do an internal transfer. So if I have multiple accounts set up in my database, I can transfer money between those two accounts. I can change my date. I can enter my amount. In case this is going to be disclosed on my government report, I can enter a reporting description here. And I can also, again, enter an internal memo. Now you'll notice here that we have 2 checkboxes, from cleared and to cleared. This is because we have our source, so where the transfer is coming from, and then we have our destination, where that transfer is going to. So we have our from cleared and our to cleared. I'm going to cancel that. And then the last transaction type we'll take a quick look at is this contribution to a third party, or non-reportable memo. You can use this in different ways, but one way that you can use this is, let's say that you have a friend that's also running or has previously run for something, and they gave you a list of their contributors. So maybe you want to have those names and amounts in your database so that you can run reports on people that you want to give calls to. They contributed to this other campaign in the past, and you want to contact them, these contributors. So you could certainly enter them as a contribution to a third party. I just want to really caution you that you don't want to enter those contributors as monetary contributors or in-kind contributors in your database if they have not given to your actual campaign. So if another candidate has said, here's my list of contributors, go ahead and put it in your database. This is how you want to enter them, as contributors to a third party. You can enter the contributor name, and then you can also enter the recipient. So this is the campaign that actually received the funds. It is not your campaign. The other way that you can use this is, let's say that in the past you or your candidate has actually run, and so you have your own list of historical contributors. They didn't give to this specific campaign that you're running right now. You don't want to enter those as actual monetary contributions because it is not having an impact on your register, and you don't want to disclose those funds because they're historical. So you don't need to include those on your government reports. They've been reported in the past. You can enter them as third-party contributions. Again, it won't have a cash impact. It won't show up on your government reports. All right, so I'm going to close this. One thing that you'll notice is that our contributions aren't in our register yet. That's because they've actually gone over here in related information. They are living in undeposited funds right now. So what I can do is actually choose to create a deposit batch. Maybe I have all these checks in my hand and I'm ready to go to the bank. And I'm not going to deposit everything. I'm only going to deposit a few checks. So by default, everything's selected. And to unselect everything, all I did was uncheck this deposit box. And now I can choose the 3 or 4 checks that I want to take to the bank and deposit. So these are the ones that I'm actually ready to take to the bank. I've selected them. And now I'm going to choose to make a deposit. My screen refreshes, and from here you'll see that we have a deposit batch assigned. This is a number that's assigned from BackOffice. It cannot be changed. It's telling me the amount of my deposit, and now I have an option to actually create a deposit label. So let's say that deposit batch number 15 does not mean anything to you. That's fine. You can actually create a deposit label. So maybe the bank assigns a specific label or gives you a specific number when you make a deposit. You can enter that there. And then you definitely want to keep track of the date you went to the bank and made your deposit. So now I'm just going to save that. And let's go back to the financial register and we'll take a look and see if our deposit is there. And it is. It's right here. Now let's say that I realized that I wanted to remove a transaction to my batch. All I did was click Modify next to the batch. And now what I can do is click this green X in a box. That's a delete icon. You'll see it throughout the database. Yep, I want to remove that. Okay, so now that amount is gone and it's impacted the deposit amount. So that was the wrong thing. I actually didn't want to include that one, but there was a different check that I wanted to include. Now what I'm going to do in my deposit batch is say I want to add some funds. Now I'm looking at my undeposited funds again. This was not toggled on, so I just put a check there, and now I'm going to uncheck it, and everything's unselected. And I'm going to choose to include Charles Jones, and I'm going to add that specific transaction to my deposit number 15. And you'll see now Charles Jones belongs to this deposit batch. So if we go back to Financial Register, you'll see that I have my deposit batch 15. Here's my deposit label that I've added here. This is the one that I added when I was creating my deposit batch. And you can see that the deposit amount has been impacted. Before we navigate away from this screen, I want to show you a couple of other things here. First of all, this drop-down in the upper left-hand corner is going to allow us to view some different accounts. So these are accounts that have been created in this BackOffice database. Initially, I was viewing primary. If I want, I could view just the secondary account. Or I have an option to view all of my accounts. So in this case, I have 2 accounts. It's going to show me the primary and the secondary account. Then I have right now this drop-down set to monetary. So it's showing me all the transactions that have a real cash impact on my register. But if I wanted, I could choose to view monetary and non-monetary. So what do I mean by non-monetary? For example, in-kind contributions. Those don't have a cash impact, but I could choose to view them in my financial register. I could, with this drop-down, choose to only view non-monetary transactions as well. So here are all of my non-monetary contributions that have been entered. On the right, I have a drop-down that's set to all elections, but I can certainly click this and choose to look at only a specific election. Now, one thing to note is that with these drop-downs, you can choose to view all, or you can choose to view one. With this election drop-down, we have we have 6 different elections that we can choose from, but you don't get the option to choose to view 3 elections. Again, you can choose all of them, or you can just choose to view one. So those are some different ways that you can view your elections. The last thing I want to show you on this screen is this option that says, when viewing transactions, show entity details in this frame. I've toggled this on, and now let's go ahead and modify this John Q. Adams. It's not going to let me do that. I have to actually go, through an individual record. Let's try this. And I want to actually view this, so I'm going to click Modify. Now you'll see what's happened. Because I chose to view my entity details in the left pane, I'm actually looking at Julie's record on the left-hand side. Okay, so I can review this specific transaction. That wasn't the $100 transaction I wanted to look at, so I'm going to choose to modify the other one. And now I'm looking at the second transaction from her. Now don't worry if you don't want to have this view on all the time. All you need to do is go to Financial, Register. And then we can unselect when viewing transactions, show entity details in this frame. And then it'll just show the Financial Register in the left-hand pane. All right, let's take a look at, let's say that we did actually create some unpaid bills. Where do those live? You can certainly access them by going to Related Information, but you can also go to Financial, Unpaid Bills, and Pending. So here are our unpaid bills and pending items. You can see the unpaid bills, and you can also see accrued miscellaneous income that's pending. So let's say that Mr. Benjamin Franklin, I'm going to make a payment to him against this $1,850 unpaid bill that I have. All I need to do is click Record Payment. And I'm not paying him the full amount. I'm just going to pay him $500. And I'm going to record. So you'll see that my outstanding amount that I owe has been reduced because I've recorded this payment. Now if we go to the Financial Register, let's see. Oh, I have this set to non-monetary. That's why I can't find my monetary transaction that I just paid. Okay, so here's Benjamin Franklin and our $500 payment that we've made. In a similar manner, you can make payments against loans. So let's say that we want to make a payment. Well, I'll go to Financial, and I can choose my loans. So here's a loan that I've received from John Q. Adams. And my current balance is actually 0 already. But you'll see I could choose to modify it. This loan was forgiven. If you have a loan that you want to forgive, once you modify your loan, you could choose to add forgiven. You could also choose to add a repayment if your campaign's actually making a repayment. Every once in a while, somebody might actually make that repayment on the behalf of your campaign. You could actually choose to add a third-party repayment, and you can do that right here. Now, I've mentioned a couple times that you can have different accounts in your BackOffice database. You can create those by going to Financial and choosing Accounts from this drop-down. So you'll see here that we have a secondary and primary account, and then we have a section for bank accounts. So what's the difference between a bank account and an account? Well, first of all, accounts, that's the name that you actually see when you're in your financial register. So just keep that in mind. Now, typically you will have a 1-to-1 ratio between your accounts and your bank accounts, but that might not always be the case. Typically, you might have, again, a 1-to-1 ratio. Let's say that you have, for bank accounts, a checking account and a savings account. Then you could create 2 accounts, one that's a checking account and one that's a savings account. And you'll see that you can tie it to a specific bank account here. But let's say that you do have a checking account. And with your checking account, as a bank account, you have an account that you've created that you actually write your checks out of. But you have a second account that's actually your petty cash account, and you have taken $500 out of your checking account to use for petty cash. If you want, you could create a second account and keep track of your transactions for that petty cash account there. You'll notice, though, that both of these are tied to the same filer committee. So when I go to run my government reports, if I were doing a Form 3, for example, and reporting to the FEC, both of these accounts are going to pull. All of the transactions to either of these accounts will pull to my Form 3 when I generate that. Now, if I wanted to edit an existing account, all I need to do is change this View Mode dropdown to Edit Mode. And I can change any information that's now no longer grayed out. I can also choose to add a new bank account. So if I did have a savings account, I could choose Add Bank Account, and I'll get a little pop-up where I can actually enter my new bank account information. You'll see that I could choose different types of accounts. And the same with the account. I can choose to add that as well. And I can choose the filing committee that it would be associated with. This database is set up only to report to the FEC, so that's my only filing committee information that I can select. But this is where you can create new accounts and bank accounts. Another thing that I mentioned was categories. So let's take a look at how you can create categories. To create categories, you'll go to the Management tab and choose categories from this drop-down. Now, categories are to money what codes are to people. So categories, this is a way that you can identify where your money is going and where it's coming from. So your category type is an umbrella. For example, I have fundraiser events. All of my fundraiser events are going to be categories that fall under this category type. Then I have my actual categories. This is where we're getting specific. So if I wanted to create a new category, I would simply click Add Category. I'm going to get a pop-up, and you'll notice here I can choose to associate it with a category, but category type, but I can also choose to not associate it with a category type. I could just leave that blank, and that's fine. This is going to be the name of my category. And then we have a designation option. So you'll see that you can indicate that this category will only be accepting revenue or only be sending expenditures, or it might be both. So in the example of my fundraiser, I might be giving some money in, but I'm also going to be sending out mailings, so I'm going to need to pay for postage and envelopes and that sort of thing. So I'm going to leave that designated as both. I'm just going to click Add, and then I'm going to click Close. And now you can see that I have a new fundraiser. I can also edit my existing categories by changing my View Mode dropdown to Edit Mode. Another option that we have here is to create new elections in your BackOffice database. So what we'll do to create a new election is go to the Management tab and just choose Elections from this drop-down. Again, as with a lot of things that you see in the Management tab, there's the View mode versus Edit mode. So if I wanted to edit an existing election, I certainly could do so. But I could also add a new election. All I need to do is click Add Election. Again, I'm going to get a pop-up, and I can type in my own text about my office thought and purpose. And then I can also select the election type, and then I can give it an election date. Whoops. And now I have my new election that I can start using. So that's how you can create an election. You'll notice that you can also inactivate elections, and you can do that here. All right, so that's how we can create new elections. Now let's take a look at the Contribution Limits Manager. Oftentimes you'll have contribution limits that come into play, so you can just go to Elections, Contribution Limits, and you'll see that you can set up contribution limits based on the type of individual they are. Essentially, you're either a regular contributor type of individual or you're the candidate. So the candidate might have the ability to give unlimited contributions to the campaign, in which case you'll see we've just toggled on the option Unlimited. With individuals, it might be per election, per year, or per election cycle, and you can select your period here, and then you can enter your limit. Same with organizations. Enter the limit, and then you can enter the period as well. You can also add different types of conditions. So let's say that committees have their own contribution limit. I can definitely set that up here. So what happens if my contributor tries to go over the limit? Let's take a look. I'll go to Financial, Register, and now I'm going to make a monetary contribution. And I'm going to enter it for $5,000. And then I'm going to click Save. You'll see that we have this warning that's been indicated here. This contribution cannot be added because the amount exceeds limits by $2,900. So Davy Jones has given us other contributions in the past, and we are way over as we're trying to enter this $5,000 contribution. The only workaround for entering an over-limit contribution is to actually turn off the contribution limit while you're doing your data entry. Do not forget to turn it back on. So that's how you can set up contribution limits. Let's take a quick look at the reconciliation tool in BackOffice. If I wanted to reconcile my BackOffice database against my bank account, I would just go to Financial and choose Reconcile. Now from here, I can choose the state or the bank account that I want to reconcile against. Because they're all coming from the same checking account as far as a bank account goes, I'm just going to leave it to all accounts. And here in the statement balance, I'm going to enter the actual balance on the statement I've received from the bank. Maybe my balance is $1,000. My statement date is 12/15/2010, and I do want my receipts and disbursements to be separated on the screen. Now I'm going to click Reconcile, and BackOffice is going to let me go through and choose which previously unreconciled transactions are showing up on my bank account, or on my bank statement. So I can go through and make some selections. You'll see that the reconciliation summary on the right changes every time I make a selection. So let's pretend that my difference is down to 0. I can click Reconcile, and close. And now those transactions that I chose to reconcile will have their cleared box checked. So if you remember when we were looking at the actual transactions, they had that cleared option. That's how you get that box checked. I also want to show you that you can set up budgets through your BackOffice database. All you need to do is go to Financial and choose Budgeting from this drop-down. I'm going to create a new one, so I'm going to click Add Budget. And as you noticed, I have a lot of budgets in here. This will be my new one. And I'm going to enter my date. I'm going to make one for the future. And now I can start adding categories that I want to include. So I'm going to say that I plan to get $1,000 from my April fundraiser event. And I'm just going to add that and close it. And then I'm going to add an expenses category. I drink a lot of water, so we'll also say that I'm going to spend $1,000 on my bottled water category. So you'll see that we now have these specific categories with our budgeted amount. Other categories will be a total of every other category that's not specifically called out here. Now I can also add a column. So maybe I want to see what I've actually spent on this category. I'll just select to add that column, and then when January 2011 rolls around and I start either bringing in money or sending out money, I'll start seeing information in this actual section. So now I can just click Save, and now I have a new budget that's created that I can use. Let's take a look at some standard reports that you can run in BackOffice. We're going to go to Reports and just choose Standard Reports from this drop-down. One of the things that you can do is run a the Thank You Manager if you leave the Type drop-down set to General and set the format to Thank Yous. My screen refreshes. I'm going to click Generate. And now I have a pop-up. I can see that I have 41 records that need to be thanked. Now what I can do here is choose to print labels based on these 41 records. I could export this information to Excel. Maybe I want to do a mail merge. I could send a thank you email by choosing Broadcast Email. Now one thing that is very important here is that we have the option to mark as thanked. This is how that thanked box gets checked in your contribution. So once this is marked as thanked, that's going to be checked, and then next week when we run the Thank You Manager again, only brand new transactions, contributions I should say, that have been entered and aren't yet marked as thanked are going to be pulled back when we run this Thank You Manager. So I'm just going to close this. I've mentioned the printing of checks. You can definitely print checks through BackOffice. All you have to do is set the standard report type drop-down to Financial Tools. And then in the Format drop-down, you can choose Print Checking. Your screen's going to refresh, and you can enter a from date, a to date, or you could do a from check number to check number, for example, and then you could generate your checks. Let's see. Also, we have some financial detail type reports that you can run. So I'm going to select that. And for example, we could do a detailed cash flow and net worth statement. I'm not going to select a date range. I want to see my entire date range since inception. So I'm not going to put a date range in there. I'm just going to simply, I'm going to say do not show addresses, and I'm just going to generate this so that we can take a look at how this report looks. So we can see that my starting cash on hand was 0. I started with nothing. And then we started having contributions come in. Here's my receipt grand total. And then I started having expenses go out. There's my disbursement grand total. And then I have my ending cash on hand. It's also showing undeposited funds. So these are things that are sitting in the undeposited funds section of the financial register. It's also showing the accrued income as well as unpaid bills. And then it's giving me a total of my net worth. So take a look at the financial details type of report. You'll see that there are quite a few different reports that you can run here. We also have some financial summaries that you can run. So maybe you wanted to run a profit and loss statement. You could certainly generate that. So you'll see here's the profit and loss statement. Now if I want, I can just click print, and it's going to allow me to choose to print this. I could chart this, and it's giving me a nice chart that I can run. Or I could send this to an Excel document. So that's an option that I have as well. So as you can see, there are some different reports that you can run. And I think that I just started to close. Internet Explorer. Sorry, Windows 7 is helping me. And I actually have this up in Firefox as well, so we'll just take it from here. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay. Now we also have custom financial reports that you can run in BackOffice. So let's take a look at that. We're going to go to Reports and then go to Custom Financial. And this is a pretty powerful tool. If you have any questions about using this, please feel free to give us a call. But what I can do here is choose to include some certain things. So maybe I wanted to run a report just for one individual. If you recall Davy Jones, we tried to enter a transaction on his record and he was over the limit. Maybe I want to see all his transactions. I could choose to do a search just for him. Here he is. So that's one of our options. We could also choose to do a search strictly for individuals. I could also choose to just do it by specific record or reporting codes. So there are lots of options there. For my case, I want to look for individuals and only contributions. And I don't care about my amount range. I want to see everything. And I also want to see all date ranges. I'm not going to restrict by that date range. Then I'm going to go to my Display Contact Information section. I actually want to see full names. And I'd like to include an email address if they have one on their record. I also want to see, let's see whether or not they've been thanked. That's another column that I want on return to me. Now I could choose to export this to Excel, but I just want to get a feel for what's going to happen here, so I'm going to click Generate. And my screen is going to refresh, and now I have a report of all of my contributions from individuals, and it has a column for my email addresses. Apparently I've done a poor job at getting email addresses. I certainly could do better. And it's also giving me information about whether or not they've received a thank you from me, so I can do a better job at thanking my people as well. So you'll also notice that I am getting a row per contribution. So I have Pedro here showing up twice because he gave me a $75 contribution and a $1,500 contribution. If I wanted to go back to that search screen, I'm just going to click Modify, and here I'm back at my custom financial report again. And maybe I want to actually include expenses this time. Contributions wasn't quite enough. I wanted this other piece of information. I could certainly add that here. I can also choose to sort by certain methods, maybe by name. I want it alphabetical, for example. So there are a lot of options that you can use here. So again, feel free to give us a call if you're trying to do some custom financial reports and you have any questions. Well, we are at the end of our time here, but I just want to encourage you to feel free to take a look at those standard reports. There's a lot of stuff in that area that you can use, but also give us a ring if you have questions. The number is 888-217-9600, and you can also send an email, and you can email us at support@completecampaigns.com. Thanks for joining me today. Goodbye.